So this is the interface for the visualizer. And specifically, we wanted to just look at one application for this session because we realized that last time we had a lot of topics to cover and less time to do that. So what we decided to do was just cover maybe something specific and then go a bit into detail with it so that we can be a bit exhaustive. So for this particular one, we're just looking at data visualizer. And also, if maybe other people are interested in other topics, then we shall be able to propose those and vote against them for the next sessions. But for today, this is it. So this is the interface for the visualizer. And as you can see from the top left, we have where we define how our data is going to come out of the system. So within here, you can see that we have a couple of outputs. We have pivot table, we have column charts, we have stacked, we have pie charts, and so on. But like we've been saying or communicating from before, it's very important for you to understand which kind of visualization you're going to use for your extract. So for this particular one, tables really just give you a table of columns and rows. So if you're interested in column graphs, it will depend on the kind of information that you want to portray or display on your screen or fetch from the system. So for this particular one, I'm just going to start with the pivot table. And then from there, we look at the other features that are on this particular screen. As we go down, we have the main dimensions. This is where you define the what, the when, and the where your data is going to come from. So from right here, under data is where we define the what, and this is where when we use the program indicators or indicators for that case. So like we've been saying before, as you can see, every item here has a description on the side. It shows if it's an indicator or a program indicator. For most of our extracts via aggregate data, they are under program indicators, but we also have some that are indicators. So the only difference is that program indicators are computed independently, while indicators can be a combination of program indicators, as we shall maybe look at in the other sessions, if you are to understand fully what the difference is. But for this particular session, what we can look at is maybe the major indicators that we use on a daily or monthly or routinely, if I may put it that way. So for this particular one, we can say that maybe if we are to fetch like maybe say prep new. So prep new is a pre-configured indicator in this case or measurement that can output what has been already configured for you, and for you just look at the numbers depending on what you want to look at. So what you need to look at is that as you go down, it's a couple of indicators that have been already put into the system, but you need to look out for prep new. This is just an indicator. So you look out for prep new as an indicator, but it has also been broken down into subcategories like for population categories and for key populations, priority populations and key populations. Beg your pardon. So if you see the ones that start with PP, that means that is for a priority population. The ones that start with KP, those are for the key populations. If you don't know the difference between the two, then you might have another session to understand those. But I'm assuming that most of us have been using the system before and have at least had basic training on the program. So as you can see, we are looking for the prep new. But if you want to look for the categories or subcategories under that, you can just look at maybe for the PP prep new, that will just give you only those that are under the priority populations. There's also KP prep new, though most of these are still under testing or for the results that are not really relating to what you have in the system. So if at all you realize that there are numbers that are not really making sense, most of the times it's actually about maybe the way you're comparing these two, the indicators and your line list or what is in the system. We've realized that some of you get the wrong indicators for the wrong extracts of the line lists. So you let us know so that we can clarify on where the need might be. It might be on our side or on your side, but if that is realized, then we make the corrections accordingly. So for now, I can just fetch out these two just to show you that information can come out of the system. So if you're not ready to update data, what you do is just hide. If you want to extract for this particular two as an example, then you update. But since we haven't defined our period and where our data is going to come from, for that case, that's the org unit. We hide for now and then go to the period and also define the period. So by default, we have last quarter, but you can decide to have a different period from this. So if you don't want last quarter, you can just decide to use a different period. So we have relative and fixed. Like we say, relative period keep on changing. Okay. So if you use a relative period, it will keep on changing depending on the time of your query. If you use a fixed period, then that will never change. As an example, as you can see, we have this month, last 3 months. These periods keep on changing depending on when you do the query. For fixed period, if you say monthly, you can see we have 2025, January, February, and March. They're all attached or appended to a particular year. This month can never change. That's why we call it fixed. So back to the query, I can just say maybe let's query data for last month, and then we still hide because we're not ready to extract. So we are going to define where our data is going to come from. So here we just go to Aggregate. So for Aggregate, we just come to, maybe we can just say maybe this is a test region that we have in the system where people go and play with the data without affecting the system. But you can also choose to have your actual facilities in here. So remember that data is collected at facility level, okay? So you can choose to have data for the entire country at once for this, or you can go region per region, district per district, sub-county, or down to the actual facilities as an example. So whichever you're interested in is what you actually select. So by selecting, it means it must have a tick or a check against whatever you want to extract from the system. So if I want to extract the entire region for market PH, but this is a demo organization unit, like we said. So I hope it has some data for last month because it's meant to just be used for training purposes. So if I try that, since I've defined the data, the period and the org unit, I can now update my data. If it doesn't have any data, then we might go back in time to extract something from the system. Okay, so as it loads, I'm assuming that maybe a couple of other people are still using the system, so it's a bit overloaded. So as it loads, we can be looking at the other features. Okay, we have some data. It has loaded finally. So right here, you can see that it has given us data for February because we said last month. But if I queried for this very same data next month, which will be April, it will give me data for March because April, last month of April is March. So if I queried for it last month, which was February, it will give me data for January. I hope it makes sense. But if I used a fixed period as February 2025, it will be February 2025, no matter the time I query for it, it will never change. So these are the values that we have for our particular specifications that we've defined in here. That is, we've queried for data for the entire country, which is Uganda, but zeroed down onto market PH. So what this means is that it's giving us data for both Uganda and market PH. But remember, market PH is a subset of Uganda. So it means that it's just combining the two subsets and putting it into one. So for this case, what you can do is try to manipulate this data extract. If you wanted to look at maybe the org units in terms of maybe row and then the data in a column format, then you just play around with these particular work areas. So what you do is just drag the org units into the rows, and then maybe we have the data left in the columns, and then maybe the period can be left in the filter. So what this means is that the columns will appear in columns, rows in rows, but the filters will be in the back end. You'll just know that my data is for this particular period, but it won't specify for you the period in the extract. But you'll just know that this is my data. As you can see, the entire thing is February, but it's just within the filter. It won't go like telling you that this particular row has this period, as opposed to if I drag this in front of or after org unit. So when I do this, it will be like for every org unit to have a period against it. So if I update this now, this is what it will tell you. To tell you that for Uganda, February, we have this. Marcus PH, we don't have actually anything for Feb. So this means that our entire data was coming from the entire country. I hope that makes sense. So I'm trying to be a bit fast through this, but also not to leave you behind so that we can have time for the Q&A. So away from this, the other things that we can do are that you can easily save this particular extract. For instance, if your extract is maybe pulled out of the system on a quarterly basis or monthly, the best thing for you to do is save this particular extract, give it an appropriate name. So for example, if this was quarterly, okay, I just said February, let me say monthly. I can just go to File, Save, give it a name and say maybe prep monthly data, and maybe I can specify for the entire country or for the particular facility. But for this case, let me just leave it here for the sake of time. This is monthly. Yes, so when I save it, you realize that the name here changes to what I've put into the system. So even if I logged out of the system or power went off or I lost internet connection, when I come back tomorrow, the next day or next year, I'll still find my data in the system as long as I can remember this particular name here. So right here, what you can do is that you can choose to also share this with someone else, okay? So this is a general scenario that I'm working through right now. But if you have a particular scenario that you want us to maybe try to extract from the system, I'm going to end this, then let you know, maybe probably submit what you want us to extract from the system, and we can try it on. We can try it out here in real time. So once you're done with this, you can also choose to share it with someone else. So by sharing, you can just put in a username or user group. So I like sharing this with the training accounts, maybe 4. So when you put in the actual username, it will give you the actual account rather than using the username or rather using their first name or last name. So I'll just click on this. For the access level, I'll just choose maybe to give them view only so they don't have to change my data. If you give them view and edit, they can go in and manipulate your data and save it as something new. So when you come back, it might be different. So I prefer giving view only so they can maybe, if they are interested in manipulating it, they can save it as something else on their side. So once you give access, it will be added down here. And you can see that we have training 4 who has view only, right? But sorry, someone saying something. Please mute if you're not. Okay, so you can see that all users have no access, but it's only for KP Training 4 that has view only. So it means that anyone else cannot access this besides me and KP Training 4. So once you close, please, I don't know who this is. Let me just check. Please mute if you're not submitting anything. Brenda KCC, please mute. Brenda. Okay, let me just mute you for now. Brenda, I think I'm failing. Okay, that's finally worked, I think. And I can see Jolly's also on. Okay. As people join, please try to mute your microphones. Thank you. Okay, so I'm done with this. So I think the next part is for us to try and push this maybe. I think I want to go to the dashboard part. I wanted us to concentrate on this particular application, and maybe we can use the greater part of the webinar for you to give feedback, and also we try to answer you. Let me just check if Isaac or anyone from my mates is on the call, so maybe they can say a word or two before we engage into the Q&A session. Isaac, if you're on call, Winnie or Moses, please, you can say hello to the team, then we can maybe go on with the Q&A session. Anyone from mates on the team, on the call? Okay, Winnie, I can see online. If you can hear us, just say hello if you can. If you can't, just text via chat, then we can maybe get you later. Okay, so I think I'm just going to call in for Q&A. I'm assuming that some of you have already gone through this, but the major part of it is for you to actually submit your concerns or challenges so that you can be able to respond to those other than me doing a demo. Most of these videos are already on our portal, which is prevention.mates.or.ug. And as I told you, under resources, you go to videos and you can see most of this that I've been going through actually in a more detailed presentation. So right now I'm going to call for feedback or questions or suggestions, and then we can continue. Okay, so I'm just looking into the chat, and if you can, please raise your hand or just unmute to ask a question. I wanted us to utilize most of this for your questions so that I don't waste more time doing something that you already know. Thank you. Are there scenarios that you want us to go through, real life scenarios that are maybe giving you a challenge that we can do right now together as a team? Is there anything you want us to look at specifically? Okay, so I can see Abdul is on. I'm going to start with Abdul,
Yes.
then I'll go to Wilfred.
Yes, Alf, can you confirm you can hear me, Alf?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. I would love for you to take us through a scenario of KPTX call versus clinical contacts disaggregated by the different KP categories. Because I've had challenges where the figures are not tallying when you go into the KP specific categories versus the aggregated number for just TX call.
Okay.
I
I
submit.
think, okay. Thanks, Abdul. I think I saw this coming, but maybe let me take a couple of questions, then we can have this answered at once. We had Wilfred.
Yes, thank you, Aus, for your presentation. Much appreciations. My question is around also what the previous speakers just talked about, but then my point of interest is specifically in the one for PPs, priority populations. I don't know, probably you could use that because I've, I think, tried to search for the TX car for the priority populations, and it seems not to be appearing from my end. So if you could use the TX car specifically for the priority populations, I think it will be much appreciated. Thank you, and over.
Okay. Thank you, Wilfred. We have is this Opperman? Hope that's the correct pronunciation. How do you pronounce the name?
Yes, good evening, Tim. Mine is an inquiry. Maybe kindly just explain the cascade of PVLS from the eligible, tested, suppressed, and the process of like having that captured if you're in the KP tracker, and how it appears on the other side when you're extracting. Is there a specific client who is eligible, and how it appears in the extract? Because I think there's some issues there as well with the eligibility and who is eligible. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not. Is there another hand? I'm seeing Abdul. Is that a new hand?
Yes, yes, Aus, this is the new hand. I would love for you to take us through on how we can use how we can use pivot tables under this data visualizer to address gaps in the spread cascade. For example, eligibility versus new, because we all know that eligibility is looking at clients who are new enrollments and those ones who are refilling for PrEP, and then versus the clients who are newly initiated, because that particular indicator looks at only the clients who are newly initiating. So help us using pivot table, see how we can address that gap between eligibility and newly initiated. Same applies to screening versus eligibility. I submit.
Did you say rescreening or screening versus eligibility?
Screening.
Okay. Okay, so I don't see any hands now, but you can ask later. So for now, we can maybe address those concerns. To start with, Abdul asked about TXCAR, then Wilfred came in with a PP disaggregates under TXCAR, then Opperman came in the cascade of PVLS. So I'll address Abdul and Wilfred. For Opperman, Joseph Kiragana or Isaac. So Isaac, I didn't see him online. I don't know if he has joined now. If he hasn't joined, Joseph Kiragana, you might help me address Opperman's concern for the cascade of PVLS. Is that okay, Joseph? After me?
It's very okay, I will say. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, so to start with, Well, I saw the TX car concern coming in, Abdul. So just to be clear with everyone, TX car is one indicator that we've still been revising together with the team on your side to see how it works out. And this hasn't been completed fully. Reason is what we are working on is that before TX car was leaving out the clinical contacts and also the long refills. It was actually just looking at mostly the clinical contacts without the long refills. So what we are trying to compute right now is have TX car as one indicator with a combination of clinical contacts and the long refills. So this hasn't been really done for all the subcategories, I might say, but maybe just to show you so far what we've done. And I know the numbers might not make sense at the moment, and that's when we call upon you to help us as well submit maybe your concerns on the numbers or figures that are coming out. But just to go to data, if I add in TX car, so the only difference with TX car and the other indicators is that TX car is an indicator, but most of the others are just program indicators. And like I said earlier, for the independent indicators like maybe prep new, prep city, those are program indicators because they are independent. But for an indicator, it can have a combination of multiple program indicators, and that's what TX car does. So when you do TX car, don't take TX car that is a program indicator if it's available. That's why you see that we have KPTX car as indicators. This is what we are actually working on at the moment, though I think we need a team to help us test out. And Herbert, if you're 9, Herbert has been of great help to help us with most of the indicators that have been missing in the system. And I think we might need someone, I don't know if Abdul, you can volunteer yourself, or Herbert as well, or anyone else that can, to help us test these indicators in detail. Because what we do is that we configure these indicators, but on your side, you actually test them and let us know that whether the figures or results are realistic or really off. And then you give us also evidence of why you think the figures are actually off track. And that's what Herbert has been doing with us for most of the indicators that you guys are looking at within the system. So if I can just pull out TX car, as you can see, we have TX car as an indicator. You just pull it to this side. Let me just remove this. So for the disaggregates, we have, I think, KP, but we are made to have the PP. So as you can see, it's a bit slow because we have some other competing indicators that have been also, being requested for that we've been working on. But I'm thinking that if we can have someone or some people help us with the feedback, this can as well be handled in the shortest time possible. So this is how you fetch out the indicators. However much at the moment, they're not really complete. So they might not give you a complete result from what you wanted or what you asked. So they will be broken down as indicators, and you'll be able to see the general one, which is TX car, broken down into KP and also the subcategories of the particular categories, SWs, PWIDs, PIPs, MSMs, and so on. They will be broken down as independent indicators as well, but they'll be just called indicators, like I said earlier. So as you can see, actually, these are the ones for the categories. I missed these for the KPs, but for the PPs, we haven't touched them yet. But still, for these, we are also still doing some tests to actually confirm that the numbers that are coming out are an actual computation of both the clinical contacts and also the long refills. So this is the testing that we might need you guys to help us out on. I left out this. So if I'm to update this, probably I'm thinking this is what you've been comparing with to say that the numbers are not tallying. And I might agree with you as well, because we haven't really tested out the output of these indicators. So as they load, I can maybe go to the next question for us to look at the figures as well. Wilfred, you had asked about the PP disaggregates for TX car. And like I said earlier, we haven't really touched those yet because of the need that we have from your side to give us the feedback on how the indicators are working or operating. So if I can go to Abdul, you had a second one about eligibility versus new. So the other thing that we're working on from our side is that we've created a dashboard. If I can create a new tab here. We've created a dashboard and we've called it a performance dashboard, if I'm correct about the name. And everyone else should have access, but if you don't, you can let us know so to give you access. So this is the new interface or the updated interface of the dashboard. What you do is just go to dashboards, and then under dashboards, you click on this and type in the name. You can put in MOH because most of the new dashboards that we're working on and have a suffix of MOH, as you can see here. So the performance dashboard is the one that is going to have most of the confirmed indicators that you might need for anything, okay? Then after every major indicator, we shall have a link to a sub dashboard that gives you detailed information about each of these indicators. As an example, we shall have the PrEP cascade. At the moment, we have pregnant women and breastfeeding for the cascade, but we are going to add in a detailed PrEP cascade dashboard, and we shall add a link just below here for you to look at the detailed cascade for PrEP. So these are things that we've been working on with Herbert, and we also have Joseph Kiagana that is also supporting us very much on the feedback for the results from the indicators and what could be missing on the user end. So I call upon you to also please volunteer yourselves or volunteer someone that can help us, improve the system by checking out or testing these particular indicators. So the system is a bit slow. That's why the figures are taking longer. Okay, they're finally here. So as you can see, we have extracts for pregnant women PrEP dashboard and the PrEP cascade. And as you can see, these are the indicators that have been built. And we are meant to build all these indicators for every category out there. So for now, we see that we have the major one, which is PP-PREV for pregnant women. We break it down to HTS, TST new. We go to the negatives, those that have been newly screened. Then we go to eligible, then for the new ones as well. And then those that are PrEP new, and then we end with the city. So the only thing that I can point out on this particular indicator is that it only brings out those that have been newly tested. So before we had an indicator that was bring out the tests for all the new ones and the existing clients in the system. And that's what we've been dealing with. So right now we are only dealing with the new tests, and the cascade goes down to TST negative only for the new tests. Then those that have been newly screened only for the new guys or for the new clients in this case. Eligibility is also for only the new ones. So we excluded those that have been rescreened, those that have been, for instance, if you have a client that is already in existence, but they've been retested, we've excluded those particular numbers from the system. And these are things that you can help us, test on your side and give us feedback to improve these particular indicators. So the same thing is for breastfeeding, and the other categories will be added as well. So like I said earlier, we shall add a link here that takes you to another dashboard that has the detailed description or detailed extracts for the PrEP cascade. The same thing will happen for treatment cascade. Same thing will be for PrEP new performances and the other bits that we shall need. So this will be your dashboard that will have all the confirmed indicators in the system. And this is what we're working on. So please just review this dashboard, give us the feedback as well so that we can improve it. If at all we need to add any other maybe indicator that is missing or revise something, then those are the things that we shall be working on from our end. I hope that answers you, Abdul. But if I go back now to the other question, it was from Opperman, and Joseph,
Yes,
can
it
help
does. Yes, it does. Thank you so much, Aus.
You're welcome. I'm here actually physically now with Isaac. I don't know if I can drag him into the webinar now, or Joseph, just help me answer that. Maybe I can drag Isaac later when he's ready. Joseph, first help me answer Opperman.
All right, thank you so much, Ausi, and thanks to all colleagues logged in. Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Kiriagana, and I work with Reach Out to Mbeya Kampala HIV project. So the question of viral load cascade or the viral load indicators in the system, the viral load indicators are interpreted the same way we interpret them in the general programming for HIV care and treatment, whereby eligibility, of course, it has varying criteria, starting from 3 months for pregnant women, every 3 months, 6 months for adolescents and children, then annual viral load for the other general population or anyone else who doesn't fall in the other categories, as well as targeted viral load for those that are doing VL following, maybe intensive adherence counseling. So you realize that for the system to auto-calculate that, it would really call for so much resources and a lot of, intelligence by the system. So the VL eligibility was left to user input. We enter it as users doing data capture, where we check eligible for VL, and then the system, whenever we extract for eligibility, it does a computation of whoever was entered as eligible for VL in a reporting period. Thereafter, the next indicator in that cascade or in the VL indicators is the tested. So following PEPFAR guidance and the general guidance by MOH, someone regarded tested is one with results in either the laboratory information management system or in the patient's file. And so even in the prevention tracker, individuals regarded as tested for VL are those individuals with VL results. And that equally constitutes the denominator for the computation. That is the sum of the suppressed and non-suppressed constitute the tested as well as the denominator for the computation for PVLS. And so the numerator are the individuals whose results are less than 1,000 copies of the virus. We've never shifted to the MOH guidance as per the new HIV guidelines because PEPFAR has never communicated so. So I think that answers the question of the valid indicators. Eligibility is user-defined. Tested is a sum of the non-suppressed and the suppressed, and it equally constitutes the denominator. The numerator is the suppressed, that is less than 1,000 copies of the virus. Thank you so much. Over to you, Alison.
Joseph, can I come in a bit?
Please do.
Where do we factor in those one who have been bled without the results? The one with the pending results?
Those that are bled without results, we've always had a response sent where we select pending results. But they only help us on coverage to know how many have been bled of the expected to be bled, meaning of the eligible, how many have been bled. However, they do not come into picture when we are computing suppression. We do not include them in the denominator because we do not have certainty of whether the sample actually reached or the sample is accepted or whether they are suppressed or unsuppressed. So they're basically used for computation of coverage where we add everyone bled against everyone expected to be bled. Does that answer you?
So literally it means when we are computing the suppression, we have to discount that one from the one tested. We have to discount those with the pending results from the one tested.
True, well stated. We do not regard them in our denominator. And that cuts across even the other general programming. Whoever doesn't have results is not counted as tested. They are just bled, but not yet tested. Then is that sufficient?
Yes, that is clear. But then also something I also wanted to know about those one with the non-HIV status. If we are looking at the testing for HIV, the one who are
Sure.
having the non-HIV status, don't we have to discount them from, don't we have to get the one eligible for testing if we are looking at, let's say, KP Prev?
Though individuals captured with non-HIV results, ideally ought not to be taken up to the level of testing. They ought to be captured as HTS non-positive. They shouldn't go up to the level of HIV testing results. But in case it really happens, those should be regarded as non-positives, and so they shouldn't be part of our new HIV positives. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question the way you want it to be answered, but that's the generic response I can give, that individuals that walk in when they're established positives, their HTS should be non-positive. They shouldn't be HTS newly tested to go up to testing to have their results captured. Thank you so much. Back to Aussie and Isaac for the rest of the discussions.
Okay, thanks, JK, for stepping in on that. And just to let you know again is that if at all you have any program question, however, this is not really a program webinar. maybe I'll have to maybe schedule another program webinar for that. But in case you have one, I'm here with Isaac physically. He's not like in the list for participants, but I'm here with him physically. He can support as well, just in case you have a question. Okay, so back to the tracker. Opperman, I realized that you were taking us into data entry and also the programming bit of it. And our major concern for this particular webinar was the data visualizer. So maybe just to answer you a bit after Joseph's input is that we already have indicators built for PVLS, as you can see right here. So maybe after your data entry, you can as well test them out and see if they are giving you results as expected. And if not, you give us the feedback to maybe support you as well on that. But we already have indicators for PVLS, as you can see, both for PPs and KPs. They're already built into the system. Okay, do we have any more questions in the chat? If I can check in the chat, or are you guys putting up your hands? I can see Richard is saying, kindly give us the link for accessing the videos. Like I said before, we have a portal, and if you don't have a portal link yet, it means you haven't been really getting feedback from the support groups that we have. So the portal is prevention.mates.or.ug. Let me just drop it in the chat. But also this has been everywhere in our WhatsApp groups and other platforms. Okay, so I've dropped the link in the chat just in case you need it again. So when you go to the portal, what you do is come to resources and then go to videos. When you go to videos, it will open up this particular page, as you can see here. And under here, we have videos for data entry, videos for extraction. We have the webinars. This was the previous webinar, so it's already on the portal as well. And this one will as well be uploaded after here. So we have tips and tricks for using the system, as you can see, and more will be loaded as well. So that is the link, and this is the page. Do we have any more questions? I wanted us to mostly utilize the remaining time for Q&A because I don't want to do a demo. Most of the demos are already in these videos. Okay, so maybe as we hold on that is that as you go back to this particular dashboard, again, I'll call upon you to look at these particular, sections that we've built in so far and give us feedback for what you think is most important and is needed on this particular dashboard for performance. So we shall be adding more content on this and also links to other detailed dashboards from there. So this is what is going to help us have a central place for what indicators are actually being utilized or used or finalized as we move along. Okay. Someone is posting something. Okay. How do I volunteer? Oh, volunteering. Okay, Abdul is asking about how you can volunteer. Just let us know what you need, the indicators that maybe you have of interest, and then we can work with you on that as the METS team and you. So some of you have indicators that you're interested in. So if you have an interest particularly, you can just let us know and then we work with you on that. If at all you feel like there's something that you want, but it's not really coming out as it should be, then we can work with you on that. So you can reach us through the chat, through our contacts. They're already on the chat description, and also our emails. The contact details are already on the portal as well. When you go to contacts, right here, you can see that we have contacts for Isaac, myself, and Winnie. So you can still reach out to us through these contacts for support. Okay. Any other questions? We have about 18 minutes left. I want us to switch to, because we had a concern, I wanted us to switch to something else. There's a team that submitted about challenges with the next appointment date, utilizing that particular field or feature. I don't know if they're on the call, and if they're not, maybe we shall share with them the recording. Is anyone on the call about next appointment issues? Can someone maybe let us know if they're on the call for us to, engage in that particular discussion after the webinar? There was a James. Okay. But still, I believe the team here can benefit from that. If there is no question, we can actually dive into that so that you can maybe save on the time after the webinar for that. Is there any other question about data visualizer or aggregate data that we can handle before we jump into the next appointment feature? Okay, so I'm assuming there's none. So what I'm just going to do is go to the next appointment. Wilfred is asking for this period as we wait for the PPTX car to be added. Kindly guide on how we can be getting that data. Which data exactly? Because I remember showing you how to get TX car data. Is it what you mean? Wilfred, you can unmute and let us know what you want.
Yes, I was about the. Of course, you showed us about for the KP. I'm talking about of the ones of priority populations. Apparently, how can we be picking it as we track our entries? Thank you.
Oh, you mean at the moment? Okay, so there are a couple of indicators that I will put together. But again, like I said, I think we mostly concentrated on the KP side on the start of it all. So what you do is that we have clinical contacts and long reviews that make up the TX car. Okay. So you can look up for clinical contacts as an independent program indicator. As you can see right here, we have clinical contacts broken down into the KPs. So the PPs, this is what we are now going to work on after confirming that actually these numbers for KPs are coming out correctly. So for now, you add up the clinical contacts, as you can see. Let me just add some of them and remove these others. Let me leave this and have this come in here. So this is what you do. You add up the clinical contacts plus the long refills. These are the long refills, okay? So you add up these two to make up TX car. And this is what we are working on from our side. Okay, so when I'm done with this, I'll just update. Hopefully it gives us some numbers. I did the entire country. Hope it doesn't take too long. So as it loads, that's basically how you do it. If at all you want to do it on the other side of, the program indicators are not using the aggregated indicators as we are working on. So for now, that's how you do it. And as it loads, I forgot to change the organ to something smaller so that it saves on the time. But now I can't stop it. Okay. So any other questions? I'm still checking in the chat. I don't know if there's something new. Can we get total TX car as program indicator? The answer is yes, but that yes still has a pending bit of it. So what we are doing is that we are working on TX car as an independent indicator. As you see here, we have TX car, which is an indicator, and it will be a combination of everything else with a combination of KPs and PPs, but this is still under configuration, if I may say, because we haven't fully tested it to check the numbers from the clinical contacts and long review. So these are the things that we are talking about for you to volunteer and support us on the feedback from your end as well for the numbers that are coming out. But yes, we shall have an independent TX card that has a combination of clinical contacts and long reviews. Someone is asking if the pregnant and breastfeeding cascade accessible now. Cascade for what, which indicator exactly? Because like I showed you here in the dashboard, we already have the cascade for pregnant and breastfeeding for the PrEP cascade. So if you have a specific indicator that you want us to build for this particular breakdown or these particular categories as well, you can let us know so that you can build on those. But for the PrEP cascade, we already have pregnant and breastfeeding, as you can see right here. He meant the clinical cascade, which is the treatment. Yes, so this is something we're going to work on as well, but at the moment we haven't built it. So we started with this. This was last evening, actually. Like I said, with Herbert, this is what we were working on, but we're going to add on treatment cascade. This is what is pending. So yes, it's work in progress. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I wanted us to jump into the next appointment.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, please. Oh, yes,
This
Abdul.
again. I want you to clarify if this cascade is picking for the pregnant women, pregnant and breastfeeding. If it is picking the program attribute of the population category pregnant and breastfeeding, or it is picking data from the data element at encounter level for pregnancy and breastfeeding status. I submit.
Okay, so the category for pregnant or breastfeeding or all the other categories are all attributes from the registration page. So that one, we pick it from the attributes part of it. Now, for these others, it depends on which indicator you're running. PP Prev as an example, these are all coming out from the stages. So these are data elements. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's only the category that is an attribute, and then we pick out the services from the.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Mm.
Only that, for example, when we're tracking, let me say PrEP for pregnant and breastfeeding mothers, you'll find that we concentrate on the population category pregnant and breastfeeding rather than the pregnancy status or breastfeeding status of all KPs and PPs. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. I think I get you now. I'm going to call in
Because
Isaac.
in the DATIM data set you usually share, you indicate that pregnant and breastfeeding a subset of all the KPs and PPs. So that means you're picking the data element in encounter level, not the program attribute of the population category.
Makes
Thank
sense.
you.
Okay, let me just echo so that we are on the same page with Isaac. Respond on that. So what you're saying is that instead of us looking at the pregnant and breastfeeding as an attribute, which is just a category at the registration, we should consider maybe their visit. If say client visits and they're pregnant at that very moment, or they are breastfeeding at that moment, we should also consider that particular data element into consideration for this calculation.
Is that what you are saying?
Man, mute.
And yes,
Is that what you are saying?
that is not what I was saying. What I was saying, when we are tracking PrEP for pregnant women, for example, if we have a target for PrEP new for pregnant and breastfeeding, usually for us, we look at the population category pregnant and breastfeeding. But when you're sharing the final DATIM data sets, you're showing that you're picking the pregnancy status of all KPs and PPs who are initiated on PrEP, but not the population category of pregnant and breastfeeding mothers. Submit.
Okay, that is different. That is different. Your first option of using the population category to determine the pregnant and breastfeeding women is what this indicator is showing. We are using the category, not the status of the person at during the follow-up at the time of the visit, because that one is an indication of who is pregnant during the visit. It might be a sex worker, it might be an AGYW, it might be anybody. This indicator is only recording those people that were started on PrEP when they were already pregnant or breastfeeding. So it is going to be picking from the population category. This is the indicator that we are going to report on, and that is the indicator we should report. The other one is a different indicator that is used in DATIM. Very different.
Okay, all right. Now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Isaac, for that. And I hope most of the questions have been answered. If any new question comes up, please raise it. But for now, I'm going to go into the next appointment issue that was raised by some team a few days ago. So most of us, I think, are misusing or wrongly using these particular data elements and attributes for our data extracts. So just to show you what happens, if you want to look at maybe appointments for a particular period, this is what you do. So I'm going to go into line lists. I'm going to use the line listing app. Okay, so from here, I'll use event. I'll pick the program and the stage. I'll just use encounter. So this is what you do. And I think most of you have been having this issue. Okay, we have the next appointment date. This is the date that we use for next appointment. Remember previously we had introduced a data element called next appointment date, but that was dropped after the upgrade because we realized that this is more utilized or more beneficial for what we are going to plan for you in the future. So if you're pulling out next appointment dates, please make sure that you use this dimension here and not the data element. So this is what you add to start with. Then you can also add maybe the visit date if you need it. And then you might also add the unique ID. So I'm adding the code and the generator. What else might we need? I think we also, the visits, might also need the visit type or the event status in this case. So I'll show you how it works. So when we have these already set, you select your org unit first, okay? So for instance, if you're looking at whose can I use? Let me use the Marcus PH. I hope we have some data in here. So what this means is that I'll hide for now, then go to the next appointment. So this is where we define which appointments you want to look at. For instance, if you wanted to look at which visits are expected in this particular month, then you come here and say this month. It will just give you the visits that are expected in this very month. If you want for next month, you just do next month or next week, whatever it is, okay? So you can define the period as well. So let me just go with this to start with. I hope we have some data. If you don't, I might change the org unit. So I'll hide. I think let me just do Kampala. Hopefully it won't show people's names. That's okay. So let me just do Kampala to be safe so that we have some realistic data. Then I'll define the visit date. So remember, this comes in two ways. If you have a visit date against a next appointment, it means that appointment was actually, confirmed in the system or put into the system as well. So it means that someone visited against that very appointment. So if you leave it blank, it will give you both the blanks and the ones with dates. But the ones that are blanks, it means those are the ones that actually pending a visit. So it means that a visit hasn't been put against those particular next appointment dates. I hope it makes sense, but you can ask questions after here as well. So the other one of event status, this can also show you which visits are active, which ones are completed, and which ones are scheduled. So the scheduled part comes in handy to show you which ones actually been scheduled but haven't been, fed into the system. So I'll hide this and the rest I can leave. So I'm going to generate this list. Hopefully it won't take too long for Kampala for this month. Okay, so we have our list right here. And as you can see, we have next appointment date here, which is for this month, right? The visit date is blank, meaning that the appointment is in the system, but the visit is not put in yet against this particular appointment. If there is a date here, it means the visit was recorded in the system against this particular next appointment. Now, for this part of scheduled, it means they were actually scheduled in the system. If you change the event status to maybe those that are active or completed, like here, let me remove the scheduled and I update. This will give you dates. As you can see, these all have dates for the visit date now. It means that for all these appointments, yes, they were for this month, but actually the clients have already visited. I hope this makes sense. But if this is blank and this is scheduled, it means the client has an appointment, but they haven't come back for their next session. So if you want to look at those that you haven't served yet, you make sure that this is blank as a visit date, or you just make this scheduled for the event status. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask questions because we have about 5 minutes to close the webinar. So I'll leave the 5 minutes for you to give me feedback on this. Someone was asking for volume. I hope I was audible.
Yes, Els, can you repeat on the event status completed versus scheduled and active?
Okay, so event status right here. Active means that a client visit has been put into the system, but they haven't finalized with the visit details. So they haven't clicked on the completed button at the bottom of the form. What it means is that maybe you're still entering the form or something is pending about that form for you to complete it. So the visit is still active. Completed means that you've entered all the data and confirmed that it's active and correct, and you complete that visit. So it's completed. The client visited and they left. Data is also in the system. Scheduled means it was scheduled, but it's not yet happened. It hasn't yet happened in the system, or the client hasn't come back to the facility for their next appointment. So for you to look at visits that are actually scheduled but haven't yet been visited, or the clients haven't visited yet against those particular appointments, what you do is you make this scheduled as one option. When you do this as scheduled, it will only show you those that have been scheduled but without a visit. That's why you see no visit date, because it hasn't happened yet in the system. Does that answer you, Abdul?
Yes, it does, Els.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on this? We have about 3 minutes, or actually less than 3. I'm checking in the chat if there's something. Can my account be given rights to extract apps like client lists, event lists? For you to get more apps, please talk to your M&E officers from the IP. The IP M&E officers can give you rights. They all have rights on the portal to actually give you the rights that you need, but you have to go through them. Please contact them. Thanks, Elsie. It's clear now. Hope we shall have all the indicators fully running for Q2 reporting. Yes, we are trying to have all the indicators in the system for the reporting to be supported. My account details. Okay. Please share this with your M&E officers for the IP. If they fail, then you contact us. Thanks for the clarification. Thanks. Okay. Okay, so I guess that is it, unless there's something else. But for the rest of the 2 minutes, we can have a closing prayer. We usually don't pray at the start, so we pray at the end. Can someone give us a closing prayer? If there's no question, that is.
Also, I have a question before they give up closing prayer.
Okay.
It might not be in regards to what we have seen right now, but it's also very important. I've been calling you about this issue. So it is about data entry for DICs. Realize that even DICs for now can enter encounters into the KP tracker, but the challenge is they're not limited to what they have to enter. So you find that DICs are initiating plans on PrEP and on ART, which they're not supposed to do. But when you, because I even logged into a DIC account, but the account of a DIC can do everything like the facility account. Can you comment on that?
Okay, I think this was an oversight on our side. You said they can initiate our clients on PrEP and what? And ART.
Yes, they can.
Okay,
And since the new tracker is in position to show us who did what, that is how we found out.
Okay, I think that was an oversight on our side, but Isaac wants to say something.
You know, that is a catch-22. There are DICs that actually have more staffing than health facilities, especially in regions that are not CDC. So it is difficult to do a blanket block, because some of those DICs are actually operating like fully fledged facilities. But we are going to look at it and do a case by case and see how to handle the situation. Thank you. But again, it is still an issue of orientation. If you have given the DICs PrEP, then what do you expect? They will initiate clients on PrEP. You are the one who gave them PrEP.
And now the challenge, when they initiate, sometimes you even find that they have put a positive, but when you trace this kind of positive in the facility data tools, you will not see.
Then
but the client is already, yes?
You want to give them a PrEP to initiate as a program. Because if you give them the PrEP, then they are initiating. If they didn't have the PrEP to initiate the clients in the first place, then they will not initiate. But the mere fact that you have given them drugs to initiate, you are giving them PrEP to initiate. You get what I'm saying? So, yes, we can do a system lock, but programmatically, if you are giving DIC's PrEP in terms of commodities, then you are telling them, initiate. The role of a DIC, the proper role was to follow up. Even the refills are supposed to be done by health facilities through an outreach. So, programmatically, first deal with that, as we also try to close down the system. We are not going
All right.
The system is not going to implement for you.
All right. Yes, Isaac, that is the guidance for all Wakiso DICs. They're not supposed to offer those services, but rather they're just mobilizing. So that is why when we find that in the system a DIC has initiated on PrEP or ART, then we investigate and see why and how.
Okay.
So we are asking ourselves, how can them be in position to do that? Can it be limited or something like that?
So we are going to put the measures on our side, but also like he guided, please try to do something on your end as well, not to give them full access for PrEP and ART.
All right.
Matthew, you have something?
Okay, I have something to say about the DIC. First of all, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
The DIC, for instance, you find some DICs are well equipped with, they have a clinician, they have a lab person at the DIC. So we understand that some of the DICs are not in the mandate of initiating PrEP. and other services. But if they are well equipped with all those client, with all those people, the clinician and lab person, I think they are in position of initiating PrEP and whatever. So it remains in programs, as Isaac has said.
Okay, thanks, Matthew, for that submission. So I'll ask you again to give us a closing prayer since we are really done. Matthew, just give us a closing prayer so that people can go do other things. Thank you.
Okay, let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we want to thank you for this engagement that we have had today. We thank you for the views that we've shared, and we pray that may you guide us to implement as we have shared today. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, I pray that continue to protect us and guide us in all our work so that we can be able to achieve our goals. In Jesus' mighty name I've prayed and believed. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. And good day, everyone. Bye-bye. Till the next one.